Hello and welcome to Studio One here at Metronome for Confetti Industry Week 2021. I'm Dean Jackson, and in a moment I'll be talking to Tashan Radtke, part of the new generation of A&R at Bmg Records. And just before we do that though, just one or two points to mention to you. It is part of Industry Week 2021, and there are other sessions later in the week. If you'd like to book onto any of those, if you go to iw.confetti.ac.uk, you'll find the booking links right there. And as always, if you fancy tweeting this or putting it on Insta or wherever, if you use the hashtag IW21, there are prizes to be won. Our team are looking through for those hashtags, and if they see that you have tweeted or Instagrammed, then you stand a chance of winning a prize. So it's hashtag IW21. Right, let's welcome Tash. Tash, how's it going? Where are you?
I'm just here.
I can see. Where are you, at home?
I'm at home. I'm in London, West London, Abbey Grove always. I'm all good. I'm enjoying the end of my second lockdown. How are you?
Yeah, I'm very well, thank you. Very well indeed. You're branded as part of the new generation of A&R. That's a big thing, a big claim for you, really. What do you think that means?
I couldn't tell you. Or Spencer puts that label on me, I guess, because I'm young, maybe. But it's more digitally focused, is where I say it would start. It starts more online than it would in a concert or anything like that. And most importantly, it starts with numbers behind it. Is the key difference and the reason I'd maybe be the new gen of A&R.
The numbers behind it. What do you mean by the numbers?
Well, nowadays there's something before there's nothing, isn't there? So you post your music online and there's Spotify and there's Apple Music and there's everything, and you kind of, unless there is that initial friction on those DSPs, or there's initial friction on TikTok, or there's initial friction on Instagram, we can't really make our first move.
That's a big thing. That's a big change, actually.
It's a huge change, isn't it? I mean, we've gone from a world where it kind of mainly relied on live was one of the kind of huge movers. I've come into A&R in a time where live obviously isn't available. So that will change and things will go back to live, obviously. But right now, the big movers are TikTok is what a lot of people are looking at. If something's moving quickly on TikTok, then the whole industry is moving quickly. Or if there's, once again, the numbers are being backed up on Spotify or Apple Music, because you can get those numbers by yourself now from your house. You don't need a label to do that.
So if I was uploading to Apple Music or to Spotify, when you talk about the numbers, you talk about the number of plays, are you?
Yeah, we're talking about the numbers of streams here.
Yeah, okay, I get it. And on TikTok, what is it? It's the number of people that are adopting your music to accompany their videos, is it?
TikTok's weird because we look at it in loads of different ways, but I guess one perspective is from an influencer perspective. So just the amount of engagement that person is getting in TikTok, not just necessarily their music. We've seen a few massive signings. I'm not sure if anyone saw Sam Ryder this year, who signed about $500,000 contract in the US as a UK artist. And that's off the back of his music really moving on TikTok. But that wasn't anyone playing his music. That was just him having fans engaged with him playing his music himself. And so really we're looking at engagement on people's content, not necessarily engagement on people's music. There's a big difference between the two.
So we've got a band in Nottingham called Blondes who've got a track called Coming of Age that's being used all over TikTok at the moment. So the fact that it's not necessarily them performing it, the fact that people are grabbing that track and using it, it's been used millions of times, I think. So that could draw attention to them, could it, for example? Even though their own TikTok stream might not be huge, the fact that their track Coming of Age is appearing here, there and everywhere is a big deal.
Yeah, and that's really valuable. To see other user-generated content around it is very, very important. And we look at that so heavily. I mean, I have meetings with TikTok quite regularly just to see what users are playing and what users are engaging with. And TikTok's so fickle because it's not necessarily, we don't put the same value on a TikTok view or like or share as we would an Instagram view or like or share. It's a lot more fast content. So where maybe one Instagram like is, we see it as something that is equivalent to maybe 5 TikTok views.
We'll come back to TikTok actually, because I'm fascinated by it, and I want to know if you've got any tips on when folks are uploading to TikTok, what sort of things, or performing on TikTok, I should say, really, I guess, what it is that they need to be doing to capture the attention of others. But before that, this phrase A&R, we throw around like everybody knows what it is. It stands for artist and repertoire. But what does your job actually entail you doing?
So, you know, there's two things. There's the artist and there's the repertoire. Repertoire is sheet music. I think that was what it was in the olden days, at least. But no, what do? It is, you know, there's very few parts to the job and it's very simple from the outside. One is scouting. And scouting will always be one of the most important things. And whether or not you have TikTok or whether or not you have Spotify or whether it was the 80s and you were going into gigs and you were getting tips off your friends, it's always been the same. It's having a good ear for talent and seeing what's popping and knowing what is very now, and that will never change. If you know what's in, you know what's in, and that's why you have these timeless A&Rs that can kind of go from the 60s all the way to the noughties seamlessly. So it's about having a good ear, and it's about being able to say, I can work with that person, because, you know, there can be people that are incredible and you can see success in people, but if you can't work with them on a personal level and you can't relate to them, then that relationship will not work. And then the second thing that's very important is you need to be that person's right-hand man in your label. No one's going to be able to work for your artist like you will. So you sign these people and you then need to defend them and hold them in your label, because it's going to be sometimes hundreds of artists in big labels. So you need to make sure your artists are dealt with well, are handled with well in your label. And a lot of A&Rs neglect this. And then the third thing, sorry.
No, it's great, keep going.
The third thing is, you know, we have to be there for the music process, and some artists and some A&Rs do this differently. I know I have artists like maybe Reggie Snow that, you know, I sign them, they get a bit of money for the recording costs and they run off and they make an album. But I also have artists that stay by my side, we go to the studio week in, week out, and we make the album together, we get the producers in. And so it all depends, you know what it is, the job changes every day, but it's about being there to make the music as well, not just signing people and scouting.
So you mentioned Reggie Snow there, but also, I mean, the big one, I guess, on your roster is KSI.
Yeah, so KSI is a bit of a weird one, and I mean, most of you may know that he's not a musician, and it was kind of, he came to us when it hadn't really worked out in Ireland, and he went to an American label called RBC, which is the label that BMG own, and it's very, very hip-hop label. They have people like Chief Keef and Walker Flock of Fame at the label, very US-minded. And they picked up KSI because they saw the numbers and they liked the deal structure that we could offer. And really, he continued to not be very successful until I met him. Not to be braggadocious, but and then we really started heading it home. We pointed much more towards the UK market. And this next album, we're going for #1. Hopefully, the last time we went for #2. And you know, it's been a great project because I've been able to see the change in him. And we went from a year ago, almost today, I released a song called Houdini that charted at #17. And before that point, his highest charting position was #41. And it came just because it was after he had hosted the biggest YouTube event of the year. I mean, turn it around a year later, we've had 3 #2s since. We've been at the #2 spot for 8 weeks of the last year. We're knocking down all the festival doors. We're going to get big stages at Reading, Leeds. So it's a big change, and we're happy about the project right now.
So do you have to consider how you take somebody who as you rightly say, is essentially not a musician and turn them into somebody who is a credible musician? Is that your challenge?
It was a challenge, but it was more, everyone grew up around music. Everyone knows what kind of music they can make. Everyone loves making music. So I guess it's kind of changing perception. We had to go around and change the whole of Britain's perception to someone who wasn't a musician. They knew wasn't a musician because everyone had grown up with him, and change that into maybe thinking, oh, maybe I can listen to it. Because there is a stigma around, you know, you're listening to a Spotify playlist and you hear a song come up from a YouTuber. You don't want to listen to that. So that was kind of our biggest challenge. And we managed to break down those doors at radio, because you know the British radio is very, very tough to break down. And once you get into Radio 1 especially, then they'll show you some love. But before that point, we had no love from radio. And it was the same with Spotify, to be honest. We didn't get any love from Spotify for about 6 months, even after we were landing in the charts.
It's interesting that you mentioned radio there, because we could be forgiven for thinking from the early part of our chat about Spotify and Instagram and so on, that radio doesn't have a role now, but it still does, right?
Radio is still so important. I mean, I kind of neglected that as my way into being an A&R, but it's the base for a lot of good projects. And without that radio background, projects really have nothing to hold on sometimes. And so you can struggle to build without that initial Radio 1 support.
Tashan, it seems like your job is like the dream job. You're living the dream. You're working in music. You're finding great artists. You're nurturing them. You're getting them to #1 in the chart. It's an astonishing job to have. It is just the dream. How did this journey even start?
Well, first of all, yeah, I mean, I love my job. I'll never act like I have the most serious job ever. It's an amazing job. I get to listen to music and get paid for it. So it's my dream and it's a dream come true. It all started with me getting a 2-week internship in a German company that someone had told me about. I speak German, by the way, and BMG is obviously German. BMG standing for Big Mean Germans. Uh, yeah, so I went out to Berlin to have a 2-week internship in Sync, which is the department that handles putting music into movies and into series. And I really enjoyed that. And I really took to my boss at the time, who was a woman called Christina, and she kind of pointed me in the right direction of where I would look to continue. And that was my first kind of glance into the music industry, that 2-week in Sync. And so I went back to London, and in that time I was meant to be heading off to uni. And my head was so spun by that 2 weeks. And I was like, I still have my place at uni, but if I can make something happen before then I'm going to take a year out and I'm going to follow my dream in Berlin. And I really just drilled in at the HR there. They should have never given me that email because I emailed twice a day, every day for half a year. And in the end, I got a placement in international marketing over in Berlin. And that was amazing. It was different to what I expected. You know, I was young, I was fairly naive. I had to move to a different country relatively quickly. It was meant to be an internship in international marketing. It turned out to be more of a PA position, which I was still happy with because I was in a record label. I was in and around the things I wanted to be in and around. I had moved out of my house. I was in a different country. So there was a lot to learn. I had to learn it very quickly, but I really enjoyed doing so. And from there, I got that extended to another 6 months. And I spent another year in Germany, which was really cool. But it is a completely different working environment to that of England. And so at one point, I did decide that I wanted to come back and do the same thing in England. And I came back to London and I worked in a pub for a bit until I could find my placement. And I found a placement as an intern again in digital sales for BMG. And I worked that for a year. And I really do think without that year in digital sales, I wouldn't be where I am. It taught me, for those of you that don't know, digital sales is the kind of pitching hub of a record label nowadays. It's a very new department. It's come from the original sales department that would get your records into stores. Now it's getting your record into the DSPs, getting onto playlists, but it's very focal for anything that happens at a label now because streaming is everything. Streaming is, you know, everyone's main source of revenue now at a record label. So it's very central to everything that's done. And I was very well linked into A&R. I was very well linked into marketing. I was very well linked into Sync, everything I did. And being in that central department at a record label taught me so much so quickly. And yeah, through being in digital sales, I met a lot of people. And this is when KSI wasn't really working in the UK. And so I was having discussions with our new head of A&R, Jamie Nelson, about kind of my thoughts on what we could do differently. And I assisted on the project from a digital sales perspective until it was kind of like, well, mate, you sound like you know enough. Why don't you help us try and make a track? And I really, to be quite honest, I blagged it all the way and I said I knew these people. And what I would do is I would say, yeah, I can get that produced on the track. And I would go home and I would just write a million emails to the producer praying that they would reply. And in the end, I managed to make it work and we did. Luckily, the first song I ever did went number 17, which was the highest release. So set me off on a good start and kind of pushed me in the direction I needed to go, wanting to be an A&R.
I think it's very interesting because it's so easy whenever we have any of these guests on, and you're a case in point here. You see somebody doing this dream job, and you know there's been a lot of legwork before that, and lots of things presumably that jobs that although you did them at the time, you weren't massively a fan of doing those. It was a means to an end, right?
Yeah, completely. I mean, one, I didn't come into the music industry knowing I wanted to be an A&R. I knew I wanted to work with music like many people do. I loved music so much. And quite funnily, while I was in digital sales, I had my heart dead set on a career in digital sales. I saw great progression in my job. I loved my manager at the time. And I was really happy where I was. It was just when the opportunity arose, I couldn't really say no. But
Incredible.
yeah, there's been a lot of legwork to this point. I mean, I spent a year and a half in Berlin, to tell you.
Yeah. So give us a flavour then. You've mentioned KSI, you mentioned some of the other artists that you work with, and how does your relationship with different artists differ? You know, do you have to do one thing for KSI, something else for someone else, something else for someone else, or is there a template for how you work with each artist?
I mean, be nice is probably the template. They're artists. These are the people that bring everyone the money, and they're the talent. So you have to always treat the talent right, I guess, is the most important thing. And an element of respect. And so Jamie taught me very early on that if you're not going to get the respect you need from an artist, and they're not, and you're not going to give them the respect they deserve, then there's no point working with them. So I guess an element of, you know, this is still a job at the end of the day. So as long as someone's going to work as hard as me, then there should be that element of respect. And I work very hard for as good as my job is. Everyone at BMG, we push each other very hard, and we try to work as hard as we can every day. So if we're not going to see that out of an artist, then it's not necessarily the right record label for them. Sorry, I just drifted. What was the question again?
No, I was just wondering how you have to vary the way that you work with different artists. So you work in one particular way with KSI, for example. Do you work with a different way in Reggie Snow? And I know you've got a new artist we'll talk about in a minute. Do you have to work differently with them?
Yeah, so it's all very ad hoc. And KSI, for example, he's such a the world sees one KSI, but when it comes to him in the working space, he's such a turtle. He's so into himself. He doesn't like people being around him necessarily. So he just wants to, you know, either I'll go over to his house, I'll show him these beats, I'll show him some songs that I found, and he'll be like, no, 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 no. He's a massive no sayer. I rarely ever, I get like 5 no's before I get any yes from him. And I have to force him to do anything that I want him to do. But yeah, him is very personal, and it's not like it all goes through his manager because his manager's been there with him from the beginning. But it's not like a big studio session and I'm going to get the world's 3 biggest producers down and we're also going to get 2. It's not really like that for him. It's never. He's kind of had the fame and the applaud before, so he likes to be low key and he records in his house, and he's very much so an introvert. Even at video shoots, you'd be amazed. He gets the work done, then he goes because he's such a hard worker as well. And then people like Reggie Snow, it's completely different because he wants to be immersed in the full music experience. So you want to get him into the best sessions. And so with Reggie, it's kind of like, we'll put a session in for him in New York, and he'll spend a week in New York, and he'll get, boom, then half the album's done because he's been around all these amazing creative people that have so-and-so cuts. So it's so different between those two are like complete opposite end of the scales and how they make music. Reggie's like, he wants all the producers in the world with him, and he wants all the names, and KSI is like, give me 2 beats and let me live in my house.
I mean, they really are poles apart. They couldn't be more different, could they, really?
They couldn't be any more
Which,
different.
I'm not asking you to say which artist you prefer, but which style of working do you prefer?
I love KSI because with KSI, he's always treated me like I know what I'm doing. So he's always given me the space to kind of, he trusts my opinion is a better way of putting it. And so he's always allowed me to go, if you say this is good, then we can cut it. And if I don't like it at the end, but da 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 da. With Reggie, he's a lot more, you know, he's an out and out artist. He's an artist for artists. He's not just an artist for artist's sake, some would say. So he likes to go away and create and kind of run away from the label and come back with a finished album almost. So I'm not really involved in that, which isn't, I have no problem with that at all, but that's just how I like working. I like being involved in every step.
Tash, do you have to be a bit of a counsellor as well? I mean, do you get phone calls from these people in the dead of night going, having a crisis of confidence or something like that?
Yeah, of course. I'm not going to out any of them, which
No,
which I have had. But yeah, of course, these people are people, and you know it's difficult because when we plan for so long, and then on one Friday a song can release and we don't get anything we want, or you know the public just doesn't react, and we've put all our hopes into this song. This has been, you know, a 1.5 year album campaign that was all meant to take off from one song, and when that doesn't go right, then we're back at square one and we don't know what to do. So that happens a lot. It's inevitable, isn't it?
It's interesting because there will be people watching this right now who've created music and put it out there, and it hasn't had the reaction that they had hoped for or they'd anticipated. Can you, in general, read how successful a track's going to be at the time that it's being recorded, or is it still a bit of a guessing game?
It's a guessing game, isn't it? There are 7 billion different people on Earth, so everyone will react to a track differently. And now with social media as well, there are so many little fickle bits of press that can happen without you realizing that they can happen, without you being able to control that they can happen, rather. So yes, personally, with the songs that I work on, I always get that feeling just before, you feel that this is the one, but people's feelings are wrong at the same time. So I wish I could say, yes, I do know when something's going to happen, but no.
I don't know whether anyone does, do they really? I
No.
mean, the more musicians I speak to, the more they think that they've recorded a massive hit and it does nothing, and then there's a throwaway track that they've recorded to put at the end of an album, and it goes on to be number one. It's not a science, is it? This.
There's no science to it. I mean, people will tell you there's science to music in the way that we want to listen to it as consumers, but I don't think there is.
Just going to mention that if you have any questions for Tashan, please put them in the chat there, and we'll get them. Get to John. John will put your questions to Tashan fairly shortly. I want to get back to TikTok again because it does seem to be this year's the flavour of 2021 seems to be TikTok. It's going to be interesting to see how it endures, actually, isn't it? Whether by 2025 it will still be a key thing there. But if someone wants to grab your attention by being on TikTok, is there something that they should be doing specifically?
So here's the thing: we're BMG, as you may know, we're one of the older labels. Our bread and butter is the Kylie Minogues of the world, and the Ronnie Woods and the Rod Stewarts, who we're now about to take in. But yes, it's such a difficult question because I don't fully understand TikTok, and I guess people in this chat will understand it a lot better than I do. But it's definitely what's in right now. We're definitely trying to see growth on TikTok. We're using it as anything. We're using it as a comparison to live, how many TikTok followers and how well people engage. But it's not the be all and the end all. I know a lot of rash signings have been made on TikTok. And so the industry are trying to take in a moment to see how it works. And the most important thing to realize with TikTok is TikTok engagement, one, does not equivalent to Spotify streams. And so you can have all the TikTok followers in the world and you can hold a tune well, but it just doesn't convert. And people that are liking your content on TikTok won't necessarily go out there and stream your music because they're two completely different things. It is very, very important, but I think it's still quite a weak link to streams.
Well, let's go back to Instagram as well, because that's still out there. And I've only just got used to Instagram, and it feels like we're moving on to something else. But as far as Instagram's concerned, it strikes me, I mean, working for BBC Introducing, when I want to know more about an artist, I'll go and look at Instagram, and I'll look at the posts that are there. The stories are great, and all of that kind of thing. And the thing that I would never consider airplay based on numbers of followers on Instagram ever, of course, that's not what I do. But it seems to me there are two things. There's a number of followers that you've got on Instagram, but also the level of engagement. In other words, how good you are at connecting with an audience. Is that something that you look at?
Yeah, I mean, an engaged audience is far better than a large audience that isn't engaged because,
Right.
people want fans to feel included. And when fans do feel included, they're more inclined to be a really strong fan, more inclined to go listen to your song the day it drops and the minute it drops. So I guess engagement rates across all the platforms are almost always, especially on TikTok, so bringing it back to TikTok, especially on TikTok, engagement rate is more important than follower number. On Instagram, the problem with Instagram now is, and I had a meeting with Instagram last week, and it is, they don't know what to do because it is so over concentrated. And now we have I don't know, I would lie if I say how many active users there are on Instagram, but there are far too many right now. You have so many celebrities with over 500,000, and Instagram can just not get that amount of content through a day onto everyone that follows them. So really, when you're looking at 500,000, what you're really looking at is about 200,000 connections a day, if that. There's a lot of shadow banning going on right now on Instagram. Instagram's in a very weird place.
What was that word you used there?
Shadow banning.
What is that?
It's Instagram have started to decide who they do and don't want people to see.
Oh, okay.
It's they've gone along the lines that they can't control it. It's just their algorithm, and their algorithm is telling them you don't want to see this. But it's no longer as simple as a follow and you see that person's content. It's now Instagram are ranking every single person you engage with. So your mum on Instagram will be at the top of your feed when she posts, but your long lost auntie won't. So
Okay, right, yeah. Wow, that's blown my mind. That's incredible, isn't it? Really. And
yeah,
I guess I guess as any social network grows, that's an issue that they're all going to have to contend with, isn't it, really?
Yeah, Instagram is in a really weird place right now. And we can't, as a music industry, we can't be lazy and only think of digital marketing. The projects I have, I mean, KSI, I broke through traditional marketing. We really broke, we hammered that home. He was on BBC Breakfast every week. So I feel people for a while got lazy and they thought the best marketing to do would, you post on your Instagram and just leave a song out, but everyone could do that by themselves. So what was the point of getting a label? We have to be very careful as labels to not slip into these lazy traps of thinking digital marketing is all we need, because traditional marketing still works and we're still going after it.
The thing with someone like KSI is very charismatic, and he's a, I don't know if this makes sense, but it's a multi-dimensional personality, isn't he? I listened to him talking to Louis Theroux on his podcast a few weeks ago, and I was quite blown away by how serious and intense he can be at times, and then within minutes he can be very flippant and talking about something trivial. He's a complex and very interesting guy, isn't he, really? So you've got a lot to work with there, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, he has so many layers to him. I don't even think the world's seen it all. I mean, he's been a YouTuber, talk host, boxer turned rapper. So we're on to his fourth new career, and I'm sure we'll hit 7 by the end of the decade, I'm sure. He's got such a dynamic personality, and it really, you wouldn't see it from kind of the consumer perspective. The Louis Theroux documentary kind of shows to kind of almost the genius he is.
Yeah.
Because he's built an empire, and people can knock him as much as they want, but he really has built an empire. And he's so intelligent. He puts on a show, but he is unbelievably intelligent. He's one of the smartest people I've worked with.
Quite sensitive, I thought, as well.
Yeah. He's very, like I said, he's very introverted. And when we have, we've had songs with a ton of rappers. We've had songs with Lil Baby, Rick Ross, soon to be Future, Tion Wayne, Swarms. Every time I've seen him in that kind of environment with a lot of rappers, he's kind of snuck away and wanted to be by himself, just chills with his bodyguard in the car until it's his turn on set.
Now, I'm thinking about the people who are watching at the moment who are maybe they're either musicians or they're working on music and all the rest of it. And we're painting a pretty bleak picture here, really, because we're saying that there's all this chatter going on Instagram in particular, which you've taught me a lot about Instagram today. I didn't know a lot of that. There's all of this going on, which makes me think, hang on, if I'm making music and there are these thousands of people doing the same thing, how do I get Tash to see my music rather than someone else's? Is there a magic way to do it?
I think what I'm trying to highlight by the Instagram and TikTok point is numbers don't always matter. So you having a lot of people discouraged by the fact they're sat there and they have, 500 Instagram followers when some of their rivals have 15,000. I don't think Instagram followers necessarily matters. If you are engaged, and if you're an artist, your Instagram needs to be the Instagram of an artist. It needs to be cool. It needs to be funky. It needs to really highlight what kind of person you are. So as long as you're doing that, we can always notice you. And 2, I think it's really important for you to pitch your music on Spotify, because like I said, a lot of these platforms aren't necessarily fair and they give it based on numbers. Spotify have been really, really not kind, but they've been really equal to a lot of the people, to a lot of musicians. So it takes nothing to get a new Music Friday out of nowhere just because you've pitched your music into the Spotify hub, into a submit a song place, and it's ended up on New Music Friday because one of the editors heard it. So I'd say really make sure you pitch your music, and Spotify could pick it up at any moment. And I've picked up on so many artists. I mean, if you know Zoe Weiss out of Germany, who's just signed to Capital, she has signed a massive deal out of Capital, and that's all come from her. Well, she was on the German Voice in 2017, but it's all come from her really making one big Spotify playlist and taking over that playlist.
So when you say pitch to Spotify for New Music Friday, what tips can you give us there?
So yeah, this was actually my job to do at the label. Sorry, blow my nose. This was my job to do while I was in digital sales, and I was pitching a lot. And what you want to do is, once again, remember that people reading your pitch aren't robots. So you want to be kind, friendly, funny, all the bits that make your music yours, you want to have out there in the pitch. Also, you want to make sure you do it 2 weeks before your song goes out. That's really, really important, because playlists get decided 2 weeks out. So New Music Friday for this Friday would have been decided 10 days ago by now. So you want to make sure you're pitching your music 2 weeks out, and then furthermore to pitching, you want to make sure you go on Submit Hub, and this is something I spoke to Spencer about vastly. Submit Hub is so useful because you can get yourself into those user generated playlists, and that is just, it's a great way to be seen. It's a great look to be in other people's playlists. Playlists is where most people discover their music now. So rather than kind of going through the social route and trying to drill through the same followers that every influencer is trying to do now, I would say make sure you drill home and you really focus on how you can get the best out of your music analytically through pitching on Spotify and through pitching on Submit Hub.
And I put my hands up and admit my bias here, but BBC Introducing seems to play a role in this as well, I think.
Yeah.
Would you agree?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing I got told to do as a young A&R was, go through the introducing lists, and those lists are massively extensive. They're massively extensive. If you go through those entire lists, it's like, if you go through them 2 years later, you kind of see what happens to those kids on the list, and it's, maybe 1 out of 3 really does make it and does get that radio play and does get that time at a label. So it's incredible.
Yeah, when we were chatting yesterday, I mentioned Holly Humberstone to you, who I was playing 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And you look back now, and she, in our end of year playlist, she was like number 50 one year, then went up to number 30, then 20, and she's one of the most sought after artists in the world right now, isn't she?
Yeah, and Holly's really proof that you can do it by yourself. There was kind of almost this thought and this kind of stigma that you couldn't do it by yourself if you were a female singer-songwriter, because it is so expensive to break female singer-songwriters. It's not true. Look at Holly. Griff signed to Warner. Holly is independent, ferociously independent, as you described yesterday. You can do it by yourself. You just need those pushes. You need to be driving your music. And I mean, with Holly, it's always stemmed from the music. She's not a massive social star, is she?
Not at all. No, it is the music. I mean, she's quite. She's got a particular style that she uses, hasn't she, for her online presence as well, which I guess is something that we can talk about a little bit later on. So when you see an artist that you really want, do you get involved in there is this thing called a bidding war, where one label wants an artist, somebody else wants them, and it feels to me like all you A&R guys, you're at BMG, but do you know all of the other A&Rs around the industry as well, and do you talk to them?
Yeah, we all talk, because like I say, scouting is very important, but word of mouth is almost twice as important to that for me personally. Just because I always find the best things from someone saying, oh, this person's managing so and so, so have a little look, and it turns out to usually be quite good looks most of the time. Bidding wars, something I like to stay out of quite a bit, just because there's this massive, and I'm learning to know it more and more, and you guys would have known it for a while. The tension and the kind of hype around the industry doesn't lead to hype around the world or London. Sometimes it does, but Holly Humberstone is a good example of a bad example, in which there's loads of hype around her and it's come true, and she stayed independent, but she has been, all 3 Warner labels, for example, Atlantic, Warner, and Parlophone, have all been chasing their tails trying to get her in, just to show you how competitive it is. 3 of the big ones there. But I like to stay out of bidding wars, just because it gets really, the money in these kind of things gets really silly really quickly, and it turns out to be no one makes any money off of these deals, because they offer such high deals that the artists can't get themselves out of their balance.
Yeah. And do you have, obviously you're very busy with the artists that you've got at the moment, and you've just got a new one as well. Do you have a limit to the number of people that you can work with? Or if you were to suddenly see this afternoon an artist on Spotify, Spotify or TikTok or wherever, and you thought, I really like this artist, is there scope for you to go to your bosses and say, look, I think we should have this person on our roster?
Well, the thing is, the working day is about 9 to 10 hours. So there's only so much I can work in a Bmg kind of environment, but the entire day is 24 hours. So there's so many projects that I can't necessarily bring into Bmg, but I'll work on the side and make it a Tashan project, make it a Tash project, where I'd love to just be a part of something. And I love the way direction something's going in, and I just want to see it successful. And so there are a few projects that I pick up here and there that I just want to be kind of an outside A&R with, and do it from a side perspective and not necessarily bring it into Bmg, but I definitely want to be a part of.
Oh, that's interesting. So there's scope for you to do that, for you to just, outside of the structure of the industry, for you to kind of take your passion and help someone along the way.
Yeah, almost like a like a freelance A&R or a freelance manager, just like dip in and out when I so please. But it's music, and once again, everyone got into the music industry because they love music. And when I hear something I love and I don't have necessarily the resources to work on it, I still want to work on it personally. I still want to see things be successful.
And do you have a go-to style that you will A&R, or could you see yourself branching out and doing it almost any genre in the world?
I mean, yeah, we're so, what's the word for it? Poly-genre. I don't know I don't know quite the word for it, but
That sounds, it's a good word. I'm going to use that again.
it's a good word. Yeah, no, everyone listens to a lot of music now. You know, you ask any young person what kind of genre they like, and they'll tell you 5 different genres at minimum. So I guess I'm not restricted in any way, and I don't really feel any restrictions on what I can A&R well, because I think it all comes down to time and dedication. People that tell you they can't do something is because they don't want to put the time and effort in to learn who's the top of these trades, and so it takes that minute. And I came in thinking that I was going to be A&R a lot of black music, which is, you know, your hip hop, your Afro swing, which is massive in the UK, some of the R&B, and then I saw the market and it is really inflated right now, and the deals that are being offered in some of these songs, because everyone wants a slice of it, because it's the hottest thing, it's really inflated. So I drifted back into a more conventional pop world, and obviously I have KSI, who's drifts between pop and black. I've just signed a new artist who's very much so your traditional pop / dance pop, but I'm everywhere. You know, the hottest things right now are definitely hip hop. Bedroom pop is very, very hot. You know, Holly Humberstone kind of borders that line, kind of taking off the Billie Eilish in the US. But you're right. Kind of, I can be anywhere. My expertise can be changed for any artist, and I feel that the skills are very transferable through genres.
Can you say who this new artist is?
Yeah, I've just signed Harvey, fresh off of the back of Strictly.
That's interesting. So imagine the first time you meet Harvey. Do you have to? Is it almost like a bit of a dating game where you have to impress him as much as he has to impress you?
Yeah, very much so. You have to kind of play a bit coy, and reserve some interest at the beginning, but it's also, I mean, with Harvey, it was very different because we're very similar ages, and when I met him, I kind of saw the star potential in him, and he sung to me like, it was so old-fashioned the way he did it, because his manager was used to be a singer as well, quite successful. So he's actually lead singer of E17. Is that the name of the band?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it was lead singer of E17. And so he literally said, Harvey, get up, sing for Tash. He's here to see you sing and dance for him. And so I sat there in the studio and watched Harvey sing and dance to me for a little while, which was really impressive. And when I heard his voice, I knew I was all in for him.
Brilliant. And that leads me neatly to my next question. You must find yourself in some really odd places, in odd circumstances. You must pinch yourself all the time thinking, how am I here doing this right now?
Yeah. I mean, you sit there and like a Monday in some weird studio in the back end of Southeast London, and you're like, how am I going to get home? Why am I here? Yeah, no, but it's all in the job, innit? It was worse for older A&Rs. I've heard stories about my manager and Spencer going all across the country to random gigs in some back alley in Tunbridge Wells. So it was a lot worse back then. Now I luckily have Google Maps on my phone, so not too bad.
When did you think of a circumstance where you just thought, this is the most surreal moment of my life? I'm standing here doing this. Because there must be a few that you suddenly think, my goodness, I can't quite believe I'm here doing this.
It was in Berlin. This is what I was still in international marketing. In Berlin, we had the Rolling Stones into the office because our CEO is a massive fan, and we're working on a bigger deal, and it's been going on for 3 years. It's kind of longer term catalog deal. I shouldn't say too much, but yeah, we were working on that, and it kind of, someone just came over to my desk and was like, "You speak English native?" I was like, "Yeah." They were like, "Okay, well, Ronnie Wood needs someone to usher him around Berlin today. He needs this table, he needs this," and just kind of spent the day, forgot about my job and running around Berlin buying Ronnie Wood things, it was such a cool day, and it was so surreal because after like 4 hours on the tube trying to find a really weird antique lamp that he said he needed for his hotel room, I was like, what am I doing? Like this is one of the weirdest and coolest day I've had at work.
That's a very Rolling Stones thing to hear, isn't it?
Yeah, it was. I needed to find like what was it? It was a 3/4 of a meter lamp that was antique, that had the right mood lighting for Ronnie for his hotel.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So, I mean, you mentioned there, you were talking about the kind of the old school way of doing A&R, where you'd be going all around the country to little gigs here, there, and everywhere. Do you ever do any? Well, obviously you can't at the moment because there aren't any gigs. But when gigs come back and when gigs were in, would you go and sort of just check out the
Yeah,
live music scene as well?
yeah. Let me tell you, when gigs are back, I'm going to be first. Well, it's so important, and I feel like there's been a lot of rash signings in a world where there hasn't been live, because you cannot replicate that connection. We use the term engagement now, but engagement was really how an audience engaged with the artist. You cannot replicate that engagement based on social media. And so the second the gigs are back, everyone will be back in and seeing how it reacts. The biggest things break from live, and you see how people connect with the audience, and that's something you can't fake. You can fake the numbers, you can't really fake that engagement.
That's a really interesting point. That's a really interesting point. I mean, you've got the perfect job. It feels like the perfect job, but there must be some pressure as well, because you're working with these artists, and presumably at some point there's going to be a release. And how much pressure is there from people elsewhere in your company to say this needs to get to number whatever in the chart, or needs to sell so many units to make it all have been worthwhile?
Yeah, it's very difficult because, like the artists, I very much live in a profit and deficit world where my job can very easily be scrutinized by numbers, and they can see how much that my projects have made and spent this year. And so, unfortunately, for the next year or so, after signing two quite big artists in quite a short space of time, I will be in my negative balance for quite a little while now.
Does that trouble you? Does that trouble you?
Yeah, it does. I do go to sleep at night thinking, what if it doesn't happen? But at the same time, it's part of the job. It is massive risk, and there's reward to it as well. I don't quite know any other job in music where it's you put your neck on the line every signing, which it really is. I just spent a massive amount of money on Harvey, and if it doesn't go well, then we'll be in a bad place as a label. But you also need to think, I'm not only funding my job, the signings that I make will also fund the people's around me's job. We have massive teams working on these projects, and I've worked with quite a few of them, and they work so hard. And we have marketing, we have digital sales, we have digital marketing, we have sync, that all need to be paid off for these signings. So you need to make sure that you're putting food on the table for the whole label.
You mentioned Jamie Nelson earlier. Is it important to have somebody who's been doing it for a little while to mentor you and to teach you the ways of the industry?
Yeah, so I got brought in by Corder Marshall. I'm sure you know Corder as well.
Yeah.
He was a great mentor. He taught me so much. Corder's about as old school as it comes. He gets called a dinosaur quite a bit, but he loves it. And it was good to, I know everything I knew about new A&R. I kind of brought that to the job with me. It was good to be taught the other way of A&Ring, so I didn't only have one perspective, because I knew about the streams, I knew about Spotify, I knew about social media. It was good to be taught from a different perspective and how to see stuff from a live perspective. And like you say with Jamie Nelson, it's so good to have his support in everything I do. He's really a pop legend. He's helped a lot on this Harvey project. He's helped a lot on KSI, even though it's not really his area. So I don't think any young A&R can burst onto the scene without older A&R above them. It's almost impossible. You need that guidance. You make so many mistakes in this job that you need someone to kind of step back with you and teach you.
Of course. Tasha could carry on talking for hours, but we need to hand over to get some questions from the folks who are watching at the moment, because I can see them flying in by the bucket load. So, John, what are we seeing coming in?
Thank you, Dean. Thank you, Tashan. It's been so good so far. Thank you for doing this. We've got loads and loads of questions. A really good one. Spotify and other streaming services are very frequently in the news about giving artists a bad cut of the pie. From your point of view, what's your opinion on how people can sustain an income through streaming, and what's your view on the cut between label, artists, publishing?
Well, yeah, the thing about Spotify is it really, as a record label, it doesn't cut me out as big as it cuts out publishing. BMG are a bigger publisher than they are record labels. So on the publishing side, it really does snub them, and it's seen as not a radio station, so they don't get radio plays from all of the Spotify radio stations, which seems really weird. So they don't get any of the money from that, which really stops income and slows it down. I guess in terms of, for the record side, it's probably bad to say, but it stabilizes the income for a lot of record labels and a lot of artists, Spotify, because you can see it. And, you know, companies like Hypnosis that have now opened up on the basis that you can almost predict the amount of money catalogs are going to make. So I see that we're moving in the right direction for sure. The early 2000s were a very rocky place if you're an A&R at that point. I know a lot of A&Rs suffered then, and a lot of musicians suffered even harder then. So we're moving in a good direction. It's definitely not the final place. Spotify have a lot of control right now over the music industry, so I'm not sure how it will change in the coming years. But there's a lot to work on, but I'm still grateful that there's a stable source of income from streams, is what I'm trying to say.
Thank you. And an extension from that, could you go through briefly the types of deals that you might be signing? So, for example, 360-degree deals as opposed to more traditional models.
Yeah, so BMG don't offer any 360s. I think that's, you know, we refounded 11 years ago now on the basis that we are going to be artist friendly, and it's not going to be you put artist friendly on the front of it and then the back end of it you're offering 360 deals. We get, you know, even I asked the other day what's the lowest percentage we can offer on a Ppd deal, when I got my absolute head barked off because I just got told that's not how we work here, and we can't try and open up the upside to give you a little bit more profit. If you don't think it's going to make it, then you can't sign it. So the deals that we offer are we offer 3 types of deals. The most simple of them is the 50-50 deal that we offer the least because it's quite hard to account, the 50-50 deal. And these are for a label called Skin and Ram offer it. So our drum and bass label and our techno label offer these kind of deals, and it's straight down the middle. You get a little advance and it's 50-50 from there, and all the costs are split 50-50 between the label and the partner of the artist at that point. So those are the deal that we offer the least. The next deal is a Ppd deal, which is kind of your traditional record deal, the record deal that most people know. The label pay for all the marketing and everything like that, all the videos. You get an advance up front, and then the label takes 70% and the artist takes 30% or around that. And this is the kind of deal that you see kind of has existed most way through the music industries in the time, really. Ours is a lot more friendly though, however, because we offer 15 to 30 years on these deals where, you know, I mean, Universal, I don't want to throw any labels in the shade here, but Universal, a lot of labels still offering lifetime deals on these Ppd deals, which means you never get your catalog back. We give people their catalog back after 15 years in most cases, 10 years for a lot of the deals that I've signed, to be fair. So, you know, it's fair deals. You sign that and you get your music back because it is their art. It's not our art, it's their art. We're just working it for them. You get that back after 15 years. And then the deal that we kind of, it's really the BMG deal. And you see a lot of, I'm not sure if you've seen Caroline become Virgin Music in the coming weeks. They basically exactly copied our deal template in doing so. And they're really stepping on our toes at this point. But the revenue share deal is what got us to the revenue share deal is the deal that really burst us onto the UK scene, and it's a deal that splits 70% to the artist, 30% to the label. You get it's not a distribution deal, which confuses a lot of people. It's a full label deal, and what comes along with it is we pay for all the marketing and all be recouped before they get paid. But after that payment, they'll receive 70% of the royalty, which is, in my eyes, the most fair deal that you can offer, and it's what's attracted a lot of artists to us. This is how I got Harvey, for example. Harvey's come out of a world where he signed a big deal with Universal at the age of 15, and then from that moment, after streaming 1.6 billion streams, he's probably made another 50 grand since. From his next billion stream, he'll make 10 times that. So these deals are a lot more fair, and they're a lot more 2020.
Okay, that's nice to know. Thank you. A few questions around this. Would you say that artists with good social media stats are starting to get signed over people who are more talented but have less desirable stats? Is raw talent becoming less important due to the advancements in technology, for example, auto-tune, etc.?
Raw talent will never be less important. Talent is the most important thing. Well, no, hard work beats talent. That's what we always say. Hard work definitely beats talent. But it's difficult because, you know, the hype train will always be the hype train, and people will get on and get off really quickly. So you do see people with these massive social medias getting snatched up for big deals, but it will never really amount to anything if they're not a talented artist. So I wouldn't really compare yourself to those kind of people. It's all about waiting for your moment and really striking when it comes. I guess, yes, there is an argument that these numbers are kind of leading people that shouldn't have the kind of opportunities that they have, but it's always been the case. It's just been different examples of it.
Okay, thank you. A really interesting one, finger on the pulse here then. So with Grimes recently selling digital artwork, are there any thoughts from major labels moving into the crypto world and selling digital assets as well as music?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we had Kings of Leon set their album up as an NFT, didn't they? And the cheapest product was 200 quid or something, I saw, through the NFT. So there's definitely money to be made. There is definitely money to be made. There's definitely negative balances to be scooped out of by these massive crypto blockchains, I think they were called. In short, I don't know the answer to this. I know everyone's very interested. I know every label had a meeting after the Kings of Leon released their album that way. So just wait on it. I think in the next coming months, you'll see kind of the front runners and who it will be. It will be most importantly the people like the Rolling Stones that can sell packages. For £1,000. It'll be those kind of, Kylie Minogue has always been a valuable artist for BMG because she can really sell high value packages. So we're going to work on it around those kind of artists. For your regular streamers that don't necessarily have that dedicated fan base, then it won't really affect them. But for people that have had a solid physical sale fan base, then it will continue maybe.
Okay, that's interesting. Thank you. A question around the importance of sync. What is your role in placements of your artist's music in use for media, adverts, TV, whatever?
Sync is what we call like the lifesaver department because they're so kind to everyone. And God, I'm just seeing the comments coming in about 11 million by NFT. It's crazy. No, Sync is a real lifesaver department because they just kind of sit humbly and they pitch your music the whole time, and all they do is bring in music and bring in money, and they don't ask for more. I guess the importance of Sync is very, very important if you look at long-term campaigns, and some campaigns are really built off Sync. We have Jay at the label, and for Jay, Sync has been incredible. It's been one, incredibly lucrative, and two, just incredibly important to placing their music and getting it out there. Sync isn't for everyone, but I guess for some campaigns, it can really build it and really break it out in different regions.
Brilliant, thank you. Do you have a hottest take or maddest prediction for what the next big thing in music is?
That's a difficult one. I saw, this isn't my opinion, but I saw a robot rapper on Instagram the other day while I was scouting, which I thought was really funny. Someone had made a robot and then rapped. I don't know if it's if you see a lot of TikTok videos, it has the artificial voice when you just type and it says something. It was something like that, but someone had programmed the voice to sound a little bit nicer. And I saw a robot rapper, which I thought was cool. No, what's the hottest thing? Well, the hottest thing, I can tell you the hottest things right now, bedroom pop is what everyone needs. Everyone has gone out there and said they need to start in a Billie Eilish replacement. And that's kind of I think the weird world that is hip hop mixed with pop is where is the sweet spot right now and where everyone wants to be. XXXTentacion kind of really set the world on fire with his album a little while ago, and everyone's trying to find that in between. I mean, Post Malone in 2019 was the highest selling artist. He outsold Ariana Grande on that album. So that kind of pop, hip hop, grungy style is the money shot right now and where people need to be.
Thank you for that. There's a question on, do you think it's important that starting out in your career, you have the impression of having a label, even if you don't? So does it give the illusion that you are in a structured environment that might entice you, or will it do the reverse?
For as long as you can act independent, and we do that. Some artists we sign and will never announce it because it will always look better to be independent. I mean, your fans connect with you, not the label. I think the label we do our job, but in terms of creative, the label shouldn't be the forefront. I think it's one, selfish, and two, people see through it when you put the label in front of everything, don't they? So I think it really needs to be the artist show, not the label show. So for as long as you can act independent, I would rather the opposite.
That's interesting. Thank you very much. Have you got any comments about mental health in the music industry and how we can keep young people, young artists, young musicians, young creatives healthy, physically and mentally?
It's a tough time right now for everyone. We're in quarantine. People aren't seeing people like they used to. The sunshine's not shining. It's raining right now in London. Not sure if it's like that where you guys are. It's difficult, man. And I just think speak up, like in any industry, speak up. There are good people in all industries. There are bad people in all industries. So you just need to find those people around you that you can confide in. I know I've actually had breakdowns through this year, and luckily I've had Jamie Nelson, my manager, to pull me out of them. So it's about having a network around you that you can trust and that you feel comfortable confiding in.
Thank you. One more before we go back to Dean. How much do you utilise your own musical taste when making decisions on how to develop an artist? Do you go with what you like personally or what you think the masses will like? There's an age-old question of creativity versus commerciality. Where do you sit in that?
Most artists that come to me have a vision for their music, and I think if an artist doesn't have a vision for their music and they're not pioneering it more than A&R, then there's a problem there. I sit there to kind of act guidance. If you want to make a specific sound, I can push you in a direction where people that maybe know how to make that sound. But I don't want to be the person pushing you in a musical direction, or else, I should be the artist and they should be the A&R.
And Dean was asking about the balance before you've signed artists, you're in the red. When you're at a crossroads and one might sell more than the other, have you ever thought of gone, I'm going to push you that way because I need to keep my job?
Well, yeah, of course, people, you don't know what sells, and sometimes going more commercial sells you less. So it's a very fine line. And I think with KSI is a good example of where I said, you know what, I'm not going to put in my personal taste, but I know what sells right now. And KSI is never going to be able to sell 1 million grime records, but we put them on an Afro swing song and we make a summary song and we put a female on it and we make it garagey and we get the likes of Anne Marie on it. Then we have something that's a bit more acceptable for the UK to digest. So yeah, there are always those kind of political conversations, but I think first and foremost with artists, it's about having your vision, and we buy into the vision. If your label hasn't bought into your vision, then it's kind of different. I don't really go with we're going to bring you in and we're going to completely change you and then we're going to put you with these people. I really think an artist should have their vision before they come to us, or else they shouldn't be getting signed.
Good advice, thank you. Dean?
Yeah, going back to that actually, because a lot of artists try to second guess the trend. They think, well, where's music going in 2022 or 2023? And how can we be ahead of the curve and change our sounds to be like that? Is that a wise thing to do or not, do you think?
I mean, the real loss. So yeah, you may have a moment kind of following the advice of these or following more commercial. The example that I always use is, people will tell you nowadays, because of streaming, it doesn't make sense to have a song longer than 3 minutes, because it just doesn't. After about 2.5 minutes, your song's valueless. You get paid after the first 30 seconds, to be fair. So you might as well release songs that are 1.5 minutes, like XXXTentacion does. His albums full of songs that are 1 minute and 15 seconds, because you get paid just as much as 7 minutes on. So I do it. But at the same time, you look at a real artist like Frank Ocean, and you look at an album like Channel Orange, where half the songs are 5 minutes. And you think to yourself, we've been told not to make songs longer than 2.5 minutes, but this has been the #1 selling R&B album for the last 5 years. So it's about finding that balance. And if you're an artist, you shouldn't be following trends, to be honest. You should be going with what you think is genuine art. It's an art music, and you shouldn't be really trying to push your music through these little jumps and skips to make it feel consumable, because people will relate to any sort of music. It isn't about being the same as everyone. Billie Eilish wasn't the same as Taylor Swift, but she's come and taken Taylor Swift's space. XXXTentacion wasn't the same as Drake, but he's come and taken Drake's space. It's very different, and people can consume very different things. You don't have to make it consumable.
So I think what we're saying here is be yourself, be authentic, be genuine. Don't chase somebody else's sound, yeah?
Just be so authentic, and don't force being different either, because I see a lot of that now when it's like, the face tattoos, it's so counter what everyone was doing. So it's not about being as extreme as possible, but it's about being different and not trying to do what everyone else does, because there are 1 million other people doing that.
For everybody online at the minute thinking, you've got the best job in the world. How do I get a job like yours? How do you go about it? I mean, I know how you did it, but is there a different way to do it now in 2021?
One, always have a little notepad of people. If you want to be an A&R, it's just important to have a little notepad of people you're scouting. So just keep that scouting mind always thinking and always looking for opportunities. And two, I would say the most important thing is speak these things into existence. If you want to be an A&R and no one knows about it, well, it's fairly useless, because I want to be an A&R for a little while and never spoken about it because I was too shy, and just it will never come to fruition living in your brain. You have to speak about these things because you don't know who you'll meet on any day. You know, you don't know who your teacher is, you don't know who they know. So you got to speak these things to existence. You got to speak it. You got to be loud and proud about all these ideas that you may have, which is really, I think that's the most important thing. You've got to really be open to speaking to people about the fact that you want to be an A&R. You shouldn't be shy about it necessarily. And two, it's about, you know, it doesn't start at a major record label. It may start at, I have a friend who started at Bmg just before me and was part of the reason why I did become an A&R. And he started off at 15 years old managing a boy from his estate. And that boy then turned out to be Swarms, who signed a record deal at EMI. Fast forward, and he's one of the most paid, he's 21 years old, and he's one of the highest paid A&Rs that I know. And he's at EMI, and it all came from him managing his friend from the estate. And it wasn't anything big, but you kind of get those looks. So be involved in music at any level. It's not about, you know, you can only work for the top artists to get a look. No, because as long as you're involved in music at all levels, then you're in it with a good shot of being around musicians, being around producers that can point you in the right direction of being an A&R. So just get involved in music, get involved managing your friends, get involved helping your friends. Like before I was a proper A&R, I was in Berlin and I was helping friends kind of release music from the UK. And that was a really important part for me. So it's about being involved and being active in all the music around you, not just high level because you're being slightly snooty.
That's so interesting, so interesting. So if you're watching this at the moment and you're thinking, okay, well, I'm not a musician myself, but I really fancy building a career in music. I don't know if you're on a production course, away from production, get into, try hand at management is what you're saying. That's a really fascinating outlook I hadn't really thought of before.
Yeah, I mean, I can give you, so that was Emmanuel who's now at EMI, and he's just signed, I'm not sure if people on the call know, he's just signed latest Drip, which is 21 in the charts right now. He's having a smasher right now with that song. And he discovered that before everyone, so congratulations to him. Also, I have a mate called Tom who managed Celeste from the age of about 14. And this was, once again, this was before Celeste was Celeste. This is when she was just a singer with no one. And he's now he's come to BMG, but he was at Universal. He's had a hand in signing Fredo. He's had a hand in signing Joel Corey. Like, it comes from any angle, and it's about getting in early. It's about being involved with things because, you know, you manage a project from so young, you manage a 14-year-old boy, and that 14-year-old boy may go to work with a producer that has a link to some sort of label. So it's all about getting involved in the music industry. Being at concerts is so important as well. It's about immersing yourself completely in the industry.
Tashan, it's been absolutely fascinating. Thank you so much. Do you want to get that? It's been really fascinating. So thank you very much indeed for your time. It's been incredible. And I know that the folks on the call will show their appreciation as well. But I've learned so much. It's been a genuine pleasure to talk to you. So thank you for your time today.
No, thank you for having me. Thank you, Spencer. Thank you, Dean, obviously. Thank you, Joe. No, it's been amazing.
We'll see you soon. Maybe next time here, out of the pandemic, you can see us.
Oh, I pray.
Okay. See you soon.
Thank you, Tashan.